This program is made possible by the loyal financial support of the friends and partners of Family Policy Institute.
Good evening and welcome to the program. My guest in studio tonight is Bridget Masango, and Bridget is the Shadow Minister for Social Development in the South African Parliament, and she represents the DA. Bridget, thanks for coming into studio and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Errol, for having me.
Now, as Shadow Minister for the Department of Social Development, you were responsible for oversight of this whole SASSA debacle that has happened, that has had our citizens glued to their television sets for the past few weeks. This debacle started with SASSA, the South African Social Security Agency, announcing that they were not able to give oversight to the payments of grant beneficiaries from the 1st of April, that CPS, who were doing the payments as an organization, the Constitutional Court ruled that their contract was invalid, and so SASSA was then tasked with either doing it themselves or finding another organization to institute the payments to grant beneficiaries. So we had a crisis that was fought out in Parliament. You made incredible speeches from the podium in Parliament. I watched that. Thank you so much. We had the Minister of Social Development come up and say there is no crisis. And then we had the President, Jacob Zuma, come up to the podium in Parliament as well and defend her and said there is no crisis. But when this case went to the Constitutional Court, the Chief Justice called it a crisis. You, as the DA Shadow Minister for Social Development, have called it a crisis, and just about every political analyst in the media all over the country has said it is a crisis. Now, Bridget, where to from here? Maybe you could just paint a brief picture of how we got to this point, and then we can talk about the way forward.
Let's go back to 2014. I'm not going to go beyond that. Let's go to 2014 when the contract between CPS and SASSA was declared invalid by the Constitutional Court, but the invalidity was suspended for the duration of the life of the contract, which was till 31st March 2017. And so there were deliverables, 7 of them, that the court was oversighting over SASSA to say, if you are going to do these things, make sure that come 31st March 2017, you are institutionalizing the grant payment system. Those deliverables were not achieved by SASSA and the department, and we started asking questions about these, like on the 7th of June last year, to say how are the deliverables going, where are the plans to take over, what is going to happen. Okay,
so you on the Social Development Portfolio Committee in Parliament, your job is to give oversight to these issues and to also hold the Minister of Social Development accountable, the executive, for the oversight of the grant payments. So the court ruled that this contract with CPS, the Cash Paymaster Services, was invalid. It then said to SASSA, now the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, is set up by the Department of Social Development to give oversight to the payments, the grant payments. They then hired CPS to do this job of work. The court ruled that the contract was invalid, so which means SASSA now was tasked with getting another organization to do the payments, and they said you have until the 1st of April, well, until the end of March, 31st of March, 2017, that will be the end of the contract with CPS, you have to find somebody else. So you now asking the Minister to come into Parliament and say what has happened and what plans have you put in place to ensure that these grant payments go ahead from the 1st of April 2017. Tell us what happened.
Then there was no plans. There were no plans. To this day, Errol, there are no plans that have been put through to us about this, which is probably why the Constitutional Court had to come in, which is why we have put out statement after statement to say the minister has to do this, or he has to actually do the honorable thing and resign, or the president of this country has to not reward incompetence and all this, but fire the minister.
So Minister Batabini Dlamini knew last year already that SASSA had to find an alternative organization to CPS to take over the payment of the grants to welfare recipients. And she did nothing about that, and SASSA did nothing about that. And SASSA came to Parliament then eventually and said, look, we aren't able to do it. We can't do it. We don't have the capacity to continue with the payments, grant payments from the 1st of April 2017 onwards. So we have a crisis on our hands, which the minister said isn't a crisis. And then, you know, even in the Constitutional Court, the Chief Justice, Mogoeng asked, you know, how is it that the minister who has executive oversight of the Department of Social Services, and I would assume one of the most important responsibilities to ensure that these payments are made, she knew about this, or she claimed she didn't know this for 6 months. SASSA knew about it. She didn't know about it. Is that a good enough explanation or excuse?
It's not at all, Errol, because you would have known or heard it during all this thing that amidst all this, the minister got 3 legal opinions that all of them, without fail, said, go to the Constitutional Court, because you may not be able to do this come 31st March 2017. And the minister didn't do that. You would have heard also that the minister or the department or SASSA filed 3 times or 2 times and withdrew the filing with the Concord, because the minister did not want this to happen, because if that would have happened, there would be enough time to at least get another person to do this work. So the minister has blocked this whole process to create this nice emergency that will leave us at the end of the day with no one else but CPS to do the work.
So you believe that the minister is doing everything in her power to keep CPS in place to make these payments to grant recipients. But now, even in the court case, the Constitutional Court case, it was revealed that there is some corruption involved, because CPS is selling information of the grant beneficiaries. They're selling their information to their subsidiaries, Net1 and other companies, who are in turn then selling insurance and airtime and all kinds of things, loans as well, microloans, to these grant beneficiaries. So they basically preying on these poor people, the welfare people, as an organization.
Yes. You actually get, as a beneficiary, you get the money on this one hand and then it goes away on the other, because there's not a lot of money that they are getting anyway. So we are on record as the Democratic Alliance having said that this money is not even enough to put the basic food on the table of these people that have been categorized as poor and vulnerable. So it is unthinkable, almost staggering, that a minister who has the opportunity and the honor of looking after the poor and vulnerable sector of our society could actually do this.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, Bridget, that she would protect CPS.
Yes.
And even though the court has found that the contract is invalid and that there is all kinds of corruption, I think the media has uncovered all this corruption of selling beneficiary information to all kinds of organizations so that they can prey on these people, yet she's protecting them. So obviously the issue of corruption comes up. It has to be. We have to investigate that possibility, and it looks more and more like corruption, and even the Constitutional Court seems to agree on that. But Bridget, we want to talk more about your role as a Christian,
yes,
put into Parliament in a very powerful and critical position at a time such as this to give oversight to this issue, and we're so grateful to God that He's placed you there. But we want to talk about the corruption issues when we come back after the break. So more with Bridget Masango after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. I'm speaking to Bridget Masango, who is the Shadow Minister for Social Development. She represents the DA, and she's overseeing the great SASSA debacle in Parliament. So, Bridget, corruption. Most people in South Africa believe the reason we arrived at this crisis with SASSA, the payment of grants to the grant recipients, the beneficiaries in South Africa, came about because of corruption. So the Minister of Social Development, Bridget Masango, insists that CPS be the organisation that makes the payments every month to grant beneficiaries. The court has ruled that the contract with CPS is invalid, but the Minister has been defending that. And so we look at even the court's ruling, the Constitutional Court's ruling that says there's all kinds of things here that they cannot explain, that they're not happy with, but they had to keep CPS on for another 12 months to make these payments because there wasn't anybody else. At this late stage, you can't find anybody else to make it because there's millions of people, 16, 17 million people that need to receive their payments. And if you had to rule that CPS is, cannot do it, then there wouldn't be anybody else. And I think, do you think the Minister knew this would happen, and so this is one way of ensuring that CPS stays in the game and is paying the recipients their grants?
Yes, Errol, having the advantage of having been in the Portfolio Committee and trying everything in our power within the parliamentary oversight mechanisms that are given to us by the Constitution, one would easily say that it can only be corruption that would make any minister, a national minister, to ensure that every single block is made so that one company is the only one that can provide the services to.
And this is Cash Pay Master Services.
And this is CPS. Yeah, Cash Pay Master Services. And there's no other explanation. Because we have the likes of the Post Office. The Constitution says, in I think it's section 138, that one organ of state can actually ask the other organ of state to actually do its work. We have the Post Office, which may not have all the infrastructure that CPS has, but has a lot of post offices, especially in the rural areas, and their ability or capability can be improved. But
now I saw that, Bridget, that the Post Office sent an advocate to the Constitutional Court, and they said that within a month they would be ready and have the infrastructure and ability to make these payments. But the court already ruled that 12 months, I suppose it will give the Post Office enough time now to get all their ducks in a row. And perhaps if the Post Office took it over, it would be much better because you can eliminate a lot of corruption. You think that will happen?
That is definitely, because also you know that there is no, the information of the beneficiaries remain within government. The money that is being made remains within the fiscus, so it would help for the government to do this work. And also you said earlier on, Errol, that the SASSA was set up by an Act of Parliament. And the basic function for it is to administer and pay the grants. So if some other company is doing this work, what is SASSA doing then with all these people? They are executives at SASSA. They are over 10,000, just on 10,000 workers throughout the country. What are they doing if all the work is being done by CPS? But you are right. The reason why we have put in place all sorts of actions to make sure that we investigate this thing to the bottom of it, to say, why would the minister go to this extent to lose a director general, to have the CEO go off sick for 2 weeks, to do all these things? I mean, there has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, look, If SASSA has been established by the Department of Social Development and Parliament to give oversight to the payments of grants, they're not doing it. They've outsourced it to another company. So, for example, if just say after CPS, the Post Office takes over the payment of grant beneficiaries, what's stopping Parliament from getting rid of SASSA? Because there's millions being paid in salaries to these people, and they're not doing anything. Just take them out of the equation altogether, save billions of rands, and just get the Post Office to do it. And oversight comes from the Department of Social Development and Parliament, of course, which is your job anyway.
That we believe the investigations are going to reveal, because it needs to go back to what was SASSA set up to do and what has it done so far. You would have heard that the judges at the Constitutional Court went on and on about why are we here? Why is SASSA not doing what it's been set up to do? It has all legal and constitutional ability to its disposal to do what it has been set up to do, but it's not doing it. So this is why we are saying there has been so much litigation where SASSA is concerned, and we are saying, and the common denominator there has been CPS, by the way. So we are saying let the investigations go to the bottom of this and tell us what exactly is going on there. And I believe that this aspect that you are introducing to this discussion now of seeing whether just another government entity can do this and report directly to the social development.
Exactly, because I can't see any reason for keeping SASSA around. Because if they're not able to make the payments, the grant beneficiaries, they've come to Parliament and says we don't have the capacity or the ability to do this. And so the court has to rule to keep on CPS to do it, but now the Post Office is coming in and say we are able to do it. Why not just close down SASSA altogether?
Yes, this whole SASSA thing has been quite an experience, I believe, for the members of Parliament, especially those that are in the Portfolio Committee of Social Development. And it has opened our eyes to a whole lot of things, and also the role that we have as members of Parliament representing South Africans in ensuring that what each executive is tasked to do, they are doing it to the benefit or the best interest of the people that they are doing it for.
Absolutely, because there's billions of rands being paid out here to all kinds of organizations and people. I read a report somewhere that said that CPS was earning over 2 billion rand. Taxpayers' money is being paid to CPS, over 2 billion rand just to make these payments to grant beneficiaries. And we thank God that the Constitutional Court ruled that they can continue for 12 months, but there's no increase. And that the Treasury has to demand every 3 months financial statements from them to make sure that everything is done above board. And they're doing this to protect the South African taxpayer. It's incredible. But some disturbing things have arisen in the last few days. The office of the Chief Justice was burgled. And the former DG of the Department of Social Services, Zane Dango, his personal home was burgled. So there's a lot happening here that really should concern South Africans. So I want to speak to Bridget more about this. So don't go away. More with Bridget Masango after the break. Welcome back to the program. I'm speaking to Bridget Masango, the Shadow Minister for Social Development in Parliament, and she represents the DA. Now, Bridget, besides all the crisis and the controversy surrounding the payment of grants to beneficiaries, we now, we've gone to the Constitutional Court. They've made a ruling, which is a very good ruling. They've kept CPS on for the next 12 months to make the payments, but they put strict measures in place. Financial oversight, all kinds of things. They didn't give them any increase, even though they've asked for that. This is an organization, CPS, making over 2 billion in 1 year of taxpayers' money for paying these grant beneficiaries. The Minister of Social Development, Batabile Dlamini, insists in keeping them, protecting them, CPS, to continue with making the payments. The Post Office has now stepped in, which is a government agency, and said that in a month's time they can be ready to make the payments. Then you have SASSA, the South African Social Security Agency, that was set up by Parliament to ensure that the grant payments are made. They're doing nothing. They came to Parliament and says, we can't do this, we don't have the capacity or the ability to do this. So it begs the question, Bridget, why are they still around? Why do we have thousands of employees? Why are people being paid huge salaries? Why is billions of taxpayers' money being spent on SASSA when they can't do the job they're mandated to do? Shouldn't we just get rid of them and get the Post Office to take over with the payments and get some oversight of that, and we save billions of taxpayers' money?
Someone has said that this grant payment space is a very complex space, and the question that you're asking, which is a big question, in fact, is we know that it's going to be revealed in all these investigations that we have asked, one, the public protector to look at, and two, to ask for the ad hoc committee that will do nothing but investigate the entire social grants payment system in this country, the role of SASSA, the role of the CPS, the role of the minister, the CEOs, everybody. Because we need to get to the bottom of where the grants are paid in a cost-effective manner to the taxpayer that actually provides the money to pay grants. And you are so right in saying that people that are in their positions to do the work must just do it. And if they don't do it, then we have, as Parliament, we have, because we are the ones that are legislators that brought about the Act in the first place. We are the ones who must now see, is this Act that we brought about, is it implementable? Is it working? If it's not, what can be done? And we believe that the ad hoc committee will be a first step towards that.
Absolutely. So you've got this ad hoc committee then, it's going to investigate all the things associated with the payment of grants, all the organizations, SASSA, CPS. We got to call people out there to pray for our nation more, intensify the prayer, because there's so much happening. And now we hear that the Chief Justice, a few days after the ruling on SASSA and the Department of Social Services, the Chief Justice offices was burgled. Computers were stolen with sensitive information about our judges in the country. We've also heard that the former DG of Social Services, Zain Dango, his house was burgled. Okay, so there's this, just, you know, it scares people when they see all of this happening. It's like, why is everybody associated with this case after the Constitutional Court, the highest court in the land, makes a ruling on this issue? Their offices are burgled, their computers are stolen with sensitive information. The former DG that left the Department of Social Services under very controversial circumstances, was butting heads with the minister, has left, and now his home is burgled. There seems to be, you know, espionage, all kinds of things that people can't understand. Should we be concerned, Bridget?
This is concerning, Errol, because, like you say, it was on Friday when the judgment was given, and on Saturday already, early morning hours, when the Chief Justice's office is said to have been burgled. It is concerning because the question in your mind, or in any South African's mind, is who next? Because people have played a role in ensuring that things are done in the way that they're supposed to be done, and to even go to an extent where you burgle the Chief Justice's offices. It didn't need to get to that stage. The Chief Justice himself said on the Wednesday when this case was before the court, he said that we do not need to be here. There is so much that is involved in bringing issues to the Constitutional Court, but we hear because, and as Judge Frontman said, we're here because of the extraordinary conduct of the Minister of Social Development. And why did we get there and risk the livelihoods of 17 million beneficiaries? Really, when for me, it's bizarrely staggering that we are sitting here discussing a possibility of a situation that could have put the lives of 17 million people at risk.
So you believe the minister must go?
The minister has to go. We've been calling for the minister to go, to do an honorable thing and resign, or for the president to fire her, because we believe that once you violate your oath of office, which you take an oath for, then in such a grave way, you do need to reflect and introspect and say, listen, let me just go. If you don't do that, the one who's the one that appointed you needs to fire you.
Absolutely, because corruption is now endemic in our nation. It's harming everybody. It's reaching everybody. And endemic corruption creates endemic poverty. And the poverty levels in our country is rising. And the reason it's rising is because we haven't got a grip on the corruption. And so that's why, Bridget Masango, I thank God that you are in the position you are as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus Christ. You believe in God's word and righteousness and justice and all of those good things. And God has placed you in this key position right at a time such as this. While all of these things is happening, here is Bridget. You did such a great job in Parliament. Your speech in Parliament, I watched it on television. You were great. Your challenge of these issues, you've been traveling up and down to Johannesburg. I've been trying to get this interview, and you've been to the Constitutional Court and back up and down. Your oversight of this whole thing and holding the minister and the department accountable has been exemplary. And we thank God that He's placed you there for a time such as this. But we want to ask, what is the next steps? What happens from now on?
Well, we have been assured, even by the Constitutional Court, that the grants will be paid on the 1st of April. We will obviously be on the lookout for that happening. But just to go to the bottom of this, as I mentioned very quickly earlier, we have put some actions in place. We've asked the public protector to look at the minister as it pertains to her oath of office, to look and see if she's violated that. We've also asked for the Speaker of Parliament, Ms. Baleka Mbete, to actually institute a ad hoc committee to look at the most important three things. One being the role of CPS in this whole debacle, the role of the minister in this whole debacle, the role of previous CEOs and current CEOs, previous ministers of social development and current ones.
Okay, so you're saying a comprehensive investigation going way back to try to find out where things went wrong with the Department of Social Service. I think that is a great thing. I think a lot will come out of it, and we're hoping that we can solve a lot of the challenges that we're facing by just doing a proper investigation and holding people accountable. People are being paid to do their jobs, and they must do it because they're being paid with public money. So Bridget Masango, once again, thank you for coming into the studio, giving us the insights, and we pray for you. We trust God is going to use you mightily in Parliament to hold people accountable, that they do their jobs and you protect the taxpayers, the citizens of this country, because that is your job and your mandate given by God and this nation and our Constitution. So we thank you for doing what you're doing. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Remember to go to our website, familypolicyinstitute.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. If you need to email us, you can email us at info@familypolicyinstitute.com. Thank you once again. God bless you and good night.